And? Anything else? Oh, good idea, Phoenix.
The Cliff, or Dr. Draken's Cure for a Cough, by Lokalyl A. Narrated by Lokalyl A. Have you ever wondered what happens to ghosts whose place of residence has fallen down or been demolished? Like the murdered maidservant who haunts the third floor of an English country mansion that has recently crumbled into a one-story pile of rubble due to rot. Or the 10-year-old chimney-haunting chimney sweep whose Victorian tenement building has long since been bulldozed, chimney and all, to be replaced by a skyscraper. Perhaps this story will give light to their fate. It begins a long time ago. On a dark, cold night at the edge of a forest shrouded in mist, a young woman runs from an unseen pursuer. Perhaps she has lost him. She doesn't know. All she knows is that the local lord has just run her fiancé through with his sword, and was now pursuing her out of lust. "Run, little rabbit," she heard him call as she fled into the dark forest, and run she did, on and on and on, until she felt her legs would crumble beneath her and her heart would burst, which at least would allow her to rest with her murdered love. Anything but falling into the grasp of a lecherous English lord. That thought kept her going on and on and on through the mist, aching footfall after aching footfall, until there was no jarring ache of foot upon earth, only fall. She had not seen the edge of the cliff as she flew towards it through the blinding darkness and fog. She did see, in a brief moment of exhilarated surprise, the roiling ocean as it breached the rocks beneath and reached up towards her with foaming fingers, as though to grasp her and bring her to the safety of their watery bosom. Thomas Munro was a young man who had travelled to the little seaside town of Shelton for his health. He had contracted a severe chest infection some months earlier, and although the worst of it had passed, he was left with a nasty, lingering cough and a feeling of miasmic lethargy. "What you need to do is to get into some vigorous hiking in the fresh coastal air," professed his doctor, Lawrence Drakekin, who thought that long COVID was an imaginary condition like depression and malnutrition. "Let them eat cake" was the motto that governed his moral compass. It was very likely that he was also an adherent of miasma theory, considering his general competence. Thomas had given up on trying to get his doctor to read the latest medical journal articles on his condition. Dr. Drakekin was most definitely an adherent of the Dunning-Kruger school of intellectual curiosity. He believed he already knew everything and didn't need to trouble himself further. Thomas thought he might look for a new doctor on his little holiday. Though, he thought with a sense of depressed resignation, the medical profession seemed to be positively flocking with quacks like Dr. Drakekin. Quacks who care more about the quality of the murdered animal skin covering their office throne than the well-being of their patients. They couldn't give a damn about their patients' skins, other than that they were there to pay for the animal skins. It had been 3 days of being cooped up in his dismal motel room due to the incessant rain. He was sitting in a lounge chair in the motel parlour, looking out at the gloom, when finally the rain had ceased. Mist still clung to the little coastal village like a starfish to a rock as the tide retreats from its stony beach. It didn't matter. He had to get out of the stuffy confines of the cheap motel. A hermit crab has better lodgings than this, he thought miserably as a hacking cough troubled him again. Thusly, Thomas Munro donned coat and umbrella and stormed into the weather. He stormed through the main street of the little village, anger seething in him at the indifference doctors have towards their patients' well-being. He stormed along the path that led into the parkland and woods. But by the time he came to the clearing past the woods, his storm had petered out, and he stopped to catch his raspy breath. The mist wasn't as thick hereabouts. He realized that he was almost at the seaside cliffs. Then Through the mist, he vaguely made out the form of a young woman, standing precariously at the edge. It seemed to him that she held a fatalistic quality, a quality that made it seem certain that she would jump. Adrenaline and moral duty suddenly quashed all ailment in his body, and he plunged forward from the tree line to rescue the troubled person standing before him. As he closed on her, her form became clearer, but as he was about to call out to her to step away from the cliff's edge, the absence of any pressure under his foot told him, in an instant, that surprisingly, he had already reached the cliff's edge. As he tumbled forward into free fall, he saw in vivid clarity that the young woman was standing about 30 feet away from the cliff's edge, on thin air. The cliff's edge that the young female ghost fell to her death from had long since eroded away and fallen into the sea. Of course, the chief moral of the tale is that the average doctor's incompetence kills their patients in many ways. This was one of the more unusual methods. Epilogue. The young man watched with great melancholy as the workers finished clearing up their worksite. A safety rail along the cliffside. The final touch was the attachment of a sign that read, "No one but ghosts past this point." He sighed and floated over to his new lady friend. At least, he thought morosely, my cough is cured.